Hi guys, I'm Rhys Madigan and I'm here today to break down my most iconic characters. Big Crime in a Small Town and Cash in the Pond. Big Crime in a Small Town was, in a way, my sort of first directorial debut. Made the film in 2014, took 7 months to make. Wasn't intended to be the film as long as it was. Ended up being, a film that was nearly 50 minutes long, which I was only trying to aim for a half an hour short. The idea of the film was, in a way, a sort of Fargo fan film. Sort of similar plot from season one. You've got a guy who has a horrible life, meets a serial killer, and then the serial killer kind of befriends him, and then things start going along the way. I was a huge fan of Fargo, watching that, and I loved it. And I just kind of wanted to make my own sort of fan film of that, and just started directing this little version of it, really. But Big Crime in a Small Town was, it was a lot of fun to make. Charlie was the obvious choice to play the serial killer. I mean, Charlie was fantastic in that role, and his vision of how I wanted him to play just matched my brain completely. He was just amazing in that film. Got it out just before Christmas in 2014, and people seemed to really enjoy it. When it came to the prequel of my character Lester Toad, it was kind of funny because I did try to plan a sequel and a prequel with the film, because I had all these ideas of what I could do with this little, making into a bit of a franchise. But the 2015 wasn't really a great year for me personally, so I had to kind of not make many films that year. Plus I was heading to uni anyway, so I was really busy that year, so I couldn't really make films and go uni at the same time. But 2015 happened, and then 2016 came along, and then I did Cold Street, which unfortunately didn't have the best reception. After Cold Street, I was like, okay, gotta make another film for 2017, but what can that film be? Obviously it has to be funny, something fresh. And Cash in the Pond happened to be in my folders. I checked the script, double checked it all, read it, everything. Loved the idea, and I thought I could do this. This seems pretty easy to make. Very small characters, very few locations, could get it done easy. Managed to film that within 2 months and got it out literally not long after. So yeah, it was great, and it was fun, and we did it. And Cash in the Pond especially was very fun to make, and so was, to be honest, both films were, but Cash in the Pond seemed to have a bit more of an easy flow than Big Crime in a Small Town did. So, I think out of the two, I think Cash in the Pond probably gets my vote for the easiest and nicest film to be made. The Wonders of Alice and Looking Glass. I'm a huge fan of the Alice in Wonderland stories. Obviously I grew up with the Disney film, and obviously I grew up with the Tim Burton version and everything, so it was always like, I'd love to make a film version of my own. There's been so many adaptations of Alice in Wonderland, it's pretty much everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's always an Alice in Wonderland spoof or adaptation, or they've done this, they've done that to it. And sometimes you think, can you even make your own version of Alice in Wonderland? But then I had this idea of, the story in my head was basically about a young girl. She has an alcoholic mum. She runs away from home, and then she just ends up in Wonderland. It's never revealed how, but she does end up in Wonderland, and then she meets these very bizarre characters, and then that's the adventure of the story. The character I play is Richard White. He's basically the White Rabbit. And in my head, he was this con artist who was selling broken watches to the characters, because I thought the White Rabbit always used to carry a watch, and he always just go, I'm late. And I just imagined him, if he was like a bloke, he'd be this con artist with a broken watch and everything. But then it's Wonderland, you can kind of mess everything up. You've got Hattington, who's mad over tea. You've got Michael Hare, who becomes obsessed with Alice. You've got an evil princess who wants to destroy Wonderland and make the biggest castle in the world because she can have the biggest amount of power. It was just a lot of fun to create these characters and kind of twist them about and, just make your own version. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed making The Wonders of Alice. We shot that in 2018. It was a lot of fun. Everybody was amazing, especially Serena Khan, who played Alice. She was just mesmerising in both films, and such an amazing actress. Alex Johnstone was a fantastic villain, playing the princess. Charlie and Sammy stole the show as Hattington and Michael Hare. They were just great. Everybody was just really amazing. And then when we did the sequel, we filmed that a year later, got that out in 2020 during the COVID. The sequel was fun to make, but not as fun as the first film. Different vibes from both films. The first film, everyone was really positive. Second film, everybody just seemed a little bit like they weren't really focused and seemed a bit negative and not as fun. I mean, we had a few good fun days. I mean, I'm definitely working with Charlie and Sammy, especially. Like, we had some great days filming those scenes. But you know, I suppose when it comes to two big feature films and you got to continue with the franchise, it can be a little bit difficult. I have got an idea of how to do a series involving the Wonders franchise. I've got this idea of how we can continue it, and without Alice, you know, I've got this brand new idea, and I hope that we can definitely make it because it's got an interesting premise, interesting story, and it literally does conclude the entire idea of the whole Wonders franchise. So I really hope I get to make it. Archie and Jim. I think this was probably the best successful accident that me and Charlie had ever created. You know, Archie and Jim started off as this little idea. It was, you know, this one-off idea that I had about two guys going into the woods. They see this lime fall from the tree, and it's like an event thing. You know, oh, autumn's going to begin. This lime's from the tree. It's going to fall, and then autumn's going to begin. It's kind of like that little sort of ritual thing that the seasons began. I just always wanted to do a film like that, and this idea of these two idiots going into the woods was the idea. The only thing that about Archie and Jim is it was never meant to be a sitcom or a series. It was never meant to be as far as it went. But after the success of the pilot, we decided let's just go ahead and make some more. Although I was a little bit sceptical at first, I didn't really think I'd have any ideas. But then as soon as I started writing, it just opened a floodgate, and all these ideas were just literally pouring out of my brain. And I was just writing and writing and writing and writing. And I remember sending Charlie all these ideas. Oh, you know, Archie and Jim go fishing. Oh, Archie and Jim encounter a bear. Oh, Archie and Jim, you know, try and eat this pineapple, but the pineapple was not a pineapple. You know, it was just stupid ideas all the time. You know, they just literally kept clicking into my head. You know, I was a big fan of sitcoms growing up. I mean, obviously I used to watch Only Fools and Horses and Last of Summer Wine and Bottom and Young Ones and everything. You know, and also Monty Python. You know, those ideas of the sitcoms always were in my brain. And I always remember I used to watch them with Charlie as well. And I used to go, can you imagine if that was me and you in that situation? Like, you know, Only Fools and Horses with the chandeliers. Can you imagine if me and Charlie did something similar to that, but maybe not involving chandeliers? You know, maybe it involves, you know, putting a giraffe in the zoo or something like that. And then the giraffe turns out to be a wooden giraffe and it breaks. Now, that would be hilarious. But unfortunately, you know, we just kind of went with our own different skepticals of, you know, we can do this, we can do that, tried to keep it fresh, and we managed to make 3 series. You know, the idea of making a series each year was a little bit, you know, determination and a bit ambitious, but I was happy to do it, Charlie was happy to do it, and I remember saying to him, you know, let's try and do 6 episodes a year, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. We did series 1 in 2018, it turned out pretty well. We did series 2 in 2019, again, a huge success. And then when we tried to do series 3, obviously COVID happened, then we had to scrap it for a little while. And then we did 10 episodes. And then I think after that, I think we realised that we just kind of sucked up all the fun. We didn't really have enough material left to do more. And I think after that, we just kind of felt like we've just done enough. The thing is with Archie and Jim, I love playing those characters. You know, I mean, Jim is such a hilarious character. How we created them is Charlie created Archie as this very miserable, grumpy, angry, egotistic bastard in a way. He is, in a way, a bastard. You know, he's always just basically angry all the time. He's always miserable. You know, but he comes up with all the plans, and what makes it funny is those plans never work. You know, he always says to Jim, right, we're gonna try and steal some money from this bank, and you know, and we're gonna do it because I thought of it. And then when it happens, it doesn't work, and then it just ends up hilarious. With Jim, you know, I always imagined him as like you know, a kid in a man's body. He's got like a 7-year-old brain. You know, he wears a jumper and his, you know, like his dad's jumper, and his sleeves are hanging out. And that's how I always imagined him, like that, you know. And when I play Jim, I kind of have to you know, put on this face and do the hands, and I just kind of put on this childlike voice. I'm like, oh, Archie, I didn't know that elephants could fly. You know, it's kind of like that. You kind of have to be kind of childlike and a bit dim-witted, and it's all the head movements and the expressions, and you know, that's how you have to play Jim in a way. You know, and the thing is about Archie and Jim as well is, you know, as much as fun it was to play, it was always exhausting. I mean, Charlie would lose his vocal cords the next day playing Archie because he had to really grovel his voice, and then there's me playing Jim, who's always jumping about and moving around and running all over the place, and we literally were exhausted. I remember that day that we filmed 4 episodes one time on a weekend. We did 4 episodes, 2 episodes on a Saturday and a Sunday, And the Monday after that, I remember my body was just fucked. I literally was just like laying there in agony. I couldn't move. I was just like, oh my God, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it was horrible. It was so horrible. But it was worth it because we got some really good episodes done. And the other good thing about Archie and Jim as well, I would say, is I've never laughed hard on set as much as Archie and Jim. There have been days where I've gone on set on an Archie and Jim episode and I have just literally almost died with laughter. It is just so fun to make those episodes. We put them on hiatus now. We're not really going to make any more yet. I mean, if we have a really good idea, never say never. But now we're just going to keep them to rest for a while we come up with different ideas. But, you know, who knows? I'm sure Archie and Jim might return at some point. But for now, don't get your hopes up. Outsmarted. I've always wanted to do my own detective series. I'm a huge fan of comedy detective films. You know, Outsmarted was something that I never thought I'd ever do. And the fact that I've managed to make it and it's become successful is just a huge dream come true. Again, another successful accident, I guess you could say. You know, with Outsmarted, I mean, I grew up with, you know, the Pink Panther films. You know, those were always my inspiration. I love the Pink Panther movies. Other inspirations involve, you know, Naked Gun, Johnny English, and Ace Ventura. You know, comedy films of detectives, you know, wacky protagonists going out to save the world from these evil villains who are trying to destroy the world or take over the world. You know, it was just always hilarious. But what I wanted to do with Outsmarted was, I kind of wanted it to be like also my Fargo. I wanted to execute it like a Fargo series, but while having sort of Pink Panther, Naked Gun, Johnny English, Ace Ventura vibes. The character of Detective Red Fox, you know, he's not an idiot. I mean, he's an idiot, but he's not like Jim idiot or, you know, idiot as in like he doesn't always know what he's doing. He does know what he's doing, but he doesn't know how to do it professionally. You know, he thinks, oh, you know, this is just me going out to solve another murder. I can get this done. That's the type of character he is. He doesn't really take many things seriously. You know, he'll see a murder and he'll just be like, oh, it's another body again, you know, I better go out and sort this out, find the murderer, get this done and over with. You know, he doesn't take it like, oh my God, there's an actual murderer out there who's going around killing people. He's just kind of like, oh, great, here's another one. It's, you know, you know, where these murderers come from, can't they just go away? You know, he just doesn't see it as an actual job. He sees it as like an interference. But when he does go out and does do his mission, you know, there are times where he can do his job right, and there are times where he definitely does his job wrong. He's just very misunderstood. But he's a very fun character to play. He's always a laugh, and, you know, I really enjoy going out filming Outsmarted. In fact, you know, most projects when I go out filming, I don't sometimes enjoy the filming process too much. But Outsmarted is actually a series I really enjoy filming. It's something that I like to go out and enjoy doing. I think Outsmarted is probably one of my favourite things I've ever done in my 18 years of filmmaking. With, you know, also with Outsmarted as well, like, you know, it was all about how do I portray this story as well. You know, when you watch films like Johnny English and Naked Gun and stuff like that, it's like these protagonists are fun and wacky, but the other characters are a little bit wacky too, and they're not very realistic. With me, with the Pink Panther films, that's what I liked. I liked the fact that Inspector Clouseau was the wacky one, and all the other characters were very serious and very normal, and they weren't like silly or wacky or anything like that. It was just like, you know, he was in the real world and he was the wacky one. That's what I wanted to do with Outsmarted. Outsmarted is Detective Red Fox. He is the wacky one, but everybody else has to be kind of grounded. So everything is quite normal except for this one character. And that's what I liked. So that was the whole idea of him being in that execution of the Pink Panther way. But I still wanted to add those sort of comedy vibes, you know, and but also make it dark as well. I mean, that's what makes Fargo work, is it's a dark comedy. It's funny and it's dark, and that's how I wanted to execute for Outsmarted. It's, you know, the cast I've had in Outsmarted has been brilliant. Everybody's played their part really well. Series 2 is definitely my favourite. I mean, I loved how that became executed. You know, I love how the series was kind of progressed and done. And it was weird as well, because when I first started writing it, I was actually in a very depressive mood. I did a pilot called The Walrus and the Carpenter, got that out during COVID, and then it became a success, so we started doing a series, and then I decided to call it Outsmarted. Originally it was going to be a prequel to the Wonders of Alice stories and everything, but then I kind of decided to make it fresh after the stress of doing the Looking Glass film, because I just thought I want to kind of depart from the Wonders franchise and do something fresh. And Outsmarted came at the right time because I was meeting really stupid, toxic actors who kept coming into my life, kept saying to me, "Oh, you know, I want to work with you. I want to do films with you. I want showreel material with you. I need this." And then I'd start, you know, getting venues and doing the, you know, planning the filmmaking. And just as we were about to start shooting, I was going, "Oh, do you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. I'd rather do better things." So, you know, so Outsmarted for me was just get my cast family, go off and make something that I can make. And I did it. And I'm very happy with it now. I think, you know, I can't wait to do series 3. Hopefully that becomes smooth sailing, because if it doesn't become smooth sailing, I think that might be my last series. So hopefully it goes well, because if it doesn't, I won't make any more after that. The Donkey, Scripting, and Christmas Threes. I've always wanted to do an autism awareness film. You know, no one was ever doing any autism awareness films at all. I mean, there was films about domestic violence and, you know, abuse and cancer and everything else, but there was nothing about autism anywhere. So I thought, I want to go ahead and make an autism awareness film. The Donkey was the first one, and made that out in 2019. But I wrote the script for that way before. I think since 2017 I had that idea. I had this donkey costume that I was making for another project called Midsummer Night's Dream. That didn't work due to, again, unreliable actors. So I decided to keep that costume and maybe use it for another project. And then I looked at the costume one day and I thought, this idea's just started clicking into my brain. This idea of, you know, a character called Eddie, who's a non-verbal autistic character, wears a donkey costume, he's going off to try and get a job. The story basic of the idea is, you know, he looks ridiculous because he's dressed up as a donkey, but he's on a very serious mission. That's the idea, because most people nowadays look at autistic people and think, oh, they're ridiculous, their ideas are ridiculous, they look ridiculous, but they end up being the most brightest people in the world, and that was basically the idea. You know, and also, Eddie is a little bit based on me from when I was younger, when I was very non-verbal. I think the only person I ever spoke to was my mum. Everybody else I never spoke to, but that's when I was non-verbal back then. But I thought there are non-verbal people out there in the world who are my age, or in their, you know, late 20s, early 30s, and, you know, I thought I'd like to get this out and make this story. So I made the film, The Donkey, and I got it out, and, you know, it didn't do very well in festivals. I think it got picked in like one festival out of like maybe the 50 that I submitted it into. But, you know, unfortunately never got the attention that I was hoping it would get. But amazingly, when I put it on YouTube, everybody was watching it and everybody loved it. So I was really happy with that success. You know, the success of The Donkey on YouTube made me do want to try again, you know, because obviously COVID had finally gone and now we could go out and do things. So I wrote the script for Scripting. The idea for that originally was Eddie was going to basically direct a performing arts event, but silently. He was going to direct this play, but it never happened. And what annoyed me is, again, unreliable actors. I had a cast planned out. I said, oh, you know, I'll pick you, tried to talk about it, but then the actors just didn't want to know. They were like, oh, we'll just talk about it when we're filming it. And I was like, but we need to have meetings and discuss locations. Nah, it's fine, don't worry about it. So I was like, are these even actors? So I cut them all out, and then I decided to go for a different story. And, you know, the idea of Scripting is, you know, Eddie's trying to find love, you know, because it was the case of, would anyone take him in because he's autistic? And that was always a fear of mine. And, you know, that's the basic